Hi everyone, it's Dave here. What you're about to hear is a preview from our Patreon, the Cinemile High Club, where we review retro movies and the biggest new TV series for less than the cost of a cup of coffee a month. So please do enjoy.
Hello patrons, it's me Cathy and I'm here with my sister Elizabeth. Hi Liz.
Hello.
Many of you will know Elizabeth as Lockdown Lizzie, who lived with Dave and I during the pandemic and therefore was forced to come on all of our podcast episodes. Welcome back, Liz.
Thank you very much.
We're here for an emergency podcast. I messaged Elizabeth only hours ago to say, reality check, America's Next Top Model is out. Will you come over and watch every episode and then record a podcast with me? And she said yes, like a great sister.
I said absolutely. It's a Monday night. I have no plans, so I'm delighted to be here.
We've literally just opened a bottle of wine. We couldn't be more excited. Elizabeth, before we watch it, what's your vibe? What are you feeling? Tell us about your Next Top Model journey. Elizabeth is, for a reference, 10 years younger than me. So Next Top Model started in
2002, I think.
So you'd have been quite young. Like when it started, you were like 7.
There's no way it was on TV in Ireland then, though. I think I used to watch it when I was like 10 or 12. It used to be constantly repeating on Living
yeah.
TV or Living Social or whatever it was called. And I used to watch so much of it. And they used to just show the episodes back to back to back. But I really remember the earlier episodes. I don't remember the later ones so much.
Yeah.
Like season 2 really sticks with me. My main core memories are about the like horrifying makeovers there. If I think to it, that's what I think of it. So
the makeover episodes were such a staple.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this. I've actually been listening to a podcast series called The Curse of America's Next Top Model, which is brilliant. And I'm going to link to it in the show notes. And this journalist is amazing. And I'll put her name in the show notes as well. She basically tracked all the problematic things in Next Top Model. Whether it was so she's an episode focused on all the times they were like kind of really terrible around women's bodies, an episode around like all the kind of tropes they leaned into around like angry black women. She's an episode around, for example, queer representation and how in some ways it was really positive and then in other ways it was really negative. She has a really interesting 2-part episode in there about how many women have attested to the fact that stuff that they revealed within their psychological assessments was like used and abused against them to make great TV. Yeah, it's a really good series and it's really dark, right? And Tyra comes across like absolutely terribly in it. And one of the things in that series that she talks about a lot is how like since the pandemic, when everyone started rewatching Next Top Model and it kind of exploded online with people being like, wait a second, this was actually terrible. Tyra's kind of tried to rewrite history and she's constantly claiming things like she was supporting curvy women and she was supporting black women. But when you go back and analyze the show, like in the entire series, there was only ever like one quote unquote plus size model actually won. And there's an episode like that was really dark where she talked about a contestant who like they knew had an eating disorder and then they sent her on a go-see and she was like told that she was too fat. Like really, really toxic stuff. And I think if you think back on the shows, like the stuff we used to look forward to when we watched it in the innocent days where we didn't realize how bad it was obviously the challenges, the makeover.
Yeah.
The go-sees.
I had actually completely forgotten about the go-sees there until you said that. And now I can just picture them like running around the city with their little lookbooks or whatever they were, like firing them across desks.
And I always loved Mr. and Miss J.
I love Miss J.
Yeah, they were great to watch. I mean, Miss J in particular was so fun. Like when I was younger, I always liked Tyra. I'm sad and embarrassed and disgusted with myself to say I actually had a crush on Nigel.
Yeah. I don't know, it's like almost his British accent like through the American lens is like kind of hot, although that's maybe the only thing. I feel like in this context he like crushable.
Yeah, it's so toxic to look back on now, and like we just absorbed it all, like, oh yeah, of course, like she's too fat because she's like a size 2.
I think I was so young that I never even had any awareness of it. Like it didn't really have any negative impact on me except for the horrifying makeovers that I could remember. I think if I watched it now as an adult I probably wouldn't be able to watch it.
Yeah, and like the
but
haircuts.
I was like so preteen that I don't even think it like any of the body image stuff even like resonated.
It's
down
so
to
insidious though, Elizabeth.
Except for Yolanda's back. I remember them being really mean about Yolanda's
okay,
back.
I don't remember that. That might come
it's like a core season 2 memory for me.
You might think it had no effect on you, but like the naughties were so toxic that like it was so insidious that like it probably would have had an effect. And when I was listening to this podcast and they actually put a trigger warning for eating disorders on one of the episodes, and there was a model talking, right, and she was saying what she weighed and she had been 5'10", And I was listening to that, and like I have a comfortable body image, and I listened to it, and what she was saying she weighed at 5'10", and that she was too quote unquote fat at is what I weigh at 5'1", and that's when you realize, holy shit, this is so toxic. Yeah, and I think I'm dying to see this series now, because I wonder if it's Tyra trying to like take back the narrative, and like she's always trying to say, look, she tries to say now, yeah, we made some mistakes, but at the end of the day, like I was, you know, always trying to promote body positivity and bring women of different color in, and can't wait to see what she has to say for herself.
Well, it's hard to picture that it's not in some way going to be favorable towards her, because I believe she's been involved in the making of it, and
The fact that they got her on.
why would she be involved in the making of something and be in something
She
that
certainly
paints her in a
didn't-
fully negative light, when there was, it's not like she needs to redeem herself
Yeah.
to keep her career going or something. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think that there's any direct need for her to address
I think
it all
there's
now.
talk of them bringing it back again, but like it's hard to, well, you can't overestimate what hit it was. They had
Oh, it was
something like
huge.
20 seasons in the States. There was actually
There was
a season.
Britain's Next Top Model.
Britain's Next Top Model. There was Australia's Next Top Model. I watched both of those. Then there was actually a season of Ireland's Next Top Model.
I did not catch that.
Yeah, it was franchised all over the world. Like, and she's she literally created the show. Her and Ken Mock were the executive producers. Like, it was a global hit, and it was so positive. And I, at the time, you know, it was such a positive story for her. Like, oh my God, the supermodel isn't dumb. She's created the show. And I'd say she's really annoyed about all the stuff that happened in the pandemic.
Yeah.
That like, we're all rooting for you.
That's the thing with like the internet and memes and reels and stuff. It's like you can't escape everything that's ever been put into a media file. Like,
Yeah.
all these things are coming back.
Yeah, it's come back.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to watch it. We need to go because we are about to watch 3 episodes.
Back to back.
Yeah. With the bottle of wine. So God help us, we'll get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm dying to see like how much footage is in it of like, is there behind the scenes? Will it just be the show? Will
I don't know.
Like, I'm excited to see the format of it as well.
What I found crazy about that podcast series I listened to was like, she didn't interview like Tyra or Miss J or Mr. J or Nigel or any of them, but she got a few people to speak to her. But primarily she spoke to the contestants, and the contestant stuff was fascinating. But as you say, Tyra's in this one, so it's like, we'll see. Let's see what Netflix have done here, because if it's a Beckham situation where it's like a glorified promo for them,
Yeah,
we'll be
hopefully
tearing
not.
this stuff
I mean,
down.
I did hear earlier when I was listening to one of the contestants that they had to sign an NDA that expired when the last season of Next Top Model aired.
Oh,
So only since the last season of Next Top Model is aired are they able to speak about it.
Interesting. There was a guy during the pandemic, and he's referenced in the podcast documentary that I mentioned, and he was one of the exec producers of the podcast documentary. During the pandemic, just for something to do, he started interviewing old contestants on YouTube, and I think that's partially what sparked all this off. So I'd love to see if they've critical commentators like that in or not. Anyway, we need to go. We've so much to watch, and see you in a minute.
See you soon.
Bye.
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. I haven't really said much, but now it's time. Fashion, model, art.
On America's Next Top Model, we were showing the behind the scenes of what the fashion world was.
I wanted to fight against the fashion industry.
The only reason the door was open to me was because of Tyra.
We had an audience of over 100 million people.
I felt like I was part of something so big.
That was a moment where I realized, oh my God, I think we've built a monster.
There was a lot of body shaming. You're not thin enough. You're not thin enough.
We are actually going to switch your ethnicities.
Oh, baby girl, baby girl.
Things get crazier and crazier. Going to get a medical procedure as part of a makeover.
Look at my teeth.
Horrific.
There was a line that I feel was crossed.
He's grabbing my legs.
It was wrong, and for some reason, no one really seemed to see it.
It's a TV show to you guys, but this is my life.
I realized Tyra would do anything for the success of her show.
I knew I went too far.
Wow, what a 3 hours that was.
Wild.
Times. I think I'm going to have to do trigger warning here ahead of this episode. We're going to have to do trigger warnings for people who struggle with eating disorders. We're going to have to do trigger warnings around sexual assault. And are there other trigger warnings? I think they're the main two.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk overall around the quality or lack thereof of the actual documentary and how it's been put together. And then let's get into all the individual stories of the kind of featured contestants. What do you think of it as a whole, as a piece of TV making?
I admire that it was only 3 episodes. I feel like sometimes these things are really dragged out. The quality of the documentary, I think I'm surprised by kind of how scathing it is in some ways. Like it doesn't just positively like reflect the show. I could have done without all of the like TikTok videos. I think it did well to frame like what spurred this documentary, which was people rewatching it during the pandemic and like viewing it through today's eyes, how it doesn't definitely hasn't aged well. And they did do a nice like montage of people reacting to it on TikTok, but then they continued to intersperse that throughout, rather than, as you said when we were watching it, like having any other commentators. They really only had the main judges and kind of
one journalist.
Yeah, and then just one journalist.
Yeah.
And to be fair, more like what are they called? The girls? What are they
Contestants?
called? More contestants than I was expecting, and their pieces were very powerful. I thought that part of the documentary was good.
Yeah, the contestants are really interesting. Yeah, I agree. The TikTok stuff really worked in the beginning as like an introduction. Then it got completely flat. And I think by inserting the TikTok stuff, which was really, really shallow, and they showed us like no more than 4 seconds of anyone speaking, I think what the show was trying to obscure is the fact that the show itself wasn't offering any point of view, or the documentary wasn't really forcing anyone to reckon. Like occasionally someone behind a camera would like ask Tyra a probing question, or ask, you know, Miss J or Mr. J a probing question. None of them would give any sort of a serious answer, and then the documentary would just move on. So I think the lack of analysis was very stark. And when I compare it to the podcast that I just listened to, which is like 10 episodes, incredibly deep dive, like that is 20 times better than this, and I would point everyone over to that podcast and
much
away
more
from
objective.
this. But it's much more fun to look at it all, of course. I think it's worth saying, so we forgot to talk about it in the intro, but of course there was always like another model on the panel. So in the early days it was Janice Dickinson, then it was Twiggy, then we'd loads of other models kind of swapping in and out. Notably, Janice Dickinson was not on this documentary, and she, I believe, has had a very well documented feud with Tyra, so frankly I would have loved to see her on it. Now, I'm not a fan of Janice Dickinson at all, by the way, and I find her really toxic on the show. But
she literally never said anything nice.
She never said anything nice.
Not one nice thing.
Like she was
and
a
they didn't
provocateur.
show Twiggy at all. They showed her for about 1 second.
Yeah, interesting.
They didn't show any of her, but she was always very nice.
Twiggy was lovely.
At least from my recollection, I remember her always being quite kind.
I remember her being lovely too. And she's got a podcast now called Tea with Twiggy, so I feel like she might have been game. The other thing about how they put it together is it's so painfully obvious how most of the reaction shots we're getting, or the really, really short snippets from people, aren't actually directly related to what the documentary's presenting us at the moment. So they'll talk about a specific plot line and they'll cut to Tyra making a face, and it's so obviously not related to it. And I just find that's quite a hacky, for a documentary that's critiquing reality TV. It's using the same old tropes that reality TV producers and editors use, and like it's a bit lacking. So I do think in that sense it's very choppy. Like people call it frankenbiting. I can basically hear where they've chopped audio and mashed it together, and it's not great. Like when I compare it to a documentary series that I was really enjoying on Netflix only a few weeks ago, The Take That One, where they use like all like old footage and then they're using voiceover, just the chopping and changing on people's faces here just like didn't work for me at all. The other thing in terms of like putting it together is they have Tyra, and we reference that in advance, but actually it nearly feels like they only interviewed Tyra for like, I don't know, 90 minutes.
I mean, they probably asked her enough questions to go for a whole day, but she wasn't answering anything.
Yeah, she didn't answer anything. Like they used her for the trailer where she's like, you asked for this, and she clearly participated, because right at the end she says we're coming back for cycle 25, so she's participating from a promotional perspective. But like I would say honestly, other than that, she had nothing to say for herself, which is fascinating because there's a lot of people, like particularly the contestants in here, speaking very negatively about her, and I don't think that they cut out scenes where she came across well. Like I do actually think she came across that badly in the interview. It was like watching somebody who's so rigidly controlled, and she'll say things like, yeah, I'm glad people have called me out on my shit, but you wait till you're called out on your shit and then you come back to me.
That's how she ended it, basically, like, wait till you're cancelled to see how it feels.
Yeah, I know. And that's not really, like, every time she kind of teetered on taking accountability, and she's right, like, we all have to take accountability for things we've done in our lives, but she did a lot of things that really propped up the negative side of the fashion industry that she claims she was trying to break. And she'll say, yeah, hell yeah, that was bad, and she'll kind of make a face, but then she just won't answer. And like, when she's asked questions about the terrible incident that we'll get to with Shandy in Milan, where there was like, you know, a situation where Shandy couldn't consent to having sex because she was blackout drunk, and yet the show filmed it. And Tyra's asked about it, and she's that was production, that was me. But at the same time, like 5 minutes earlier, Tyra's like, when she's most animated in the series and when she speaks the most, is like how she came up with the idea, how she made the show, how she went to pitch out the show, and she's taking like full responsibility as executive producer there. But then when it doesn't suit her, she's not taking any responsibility, and that feels like quite insidious.
They all did though. They were all basically like, it was our night off. It was just the camera people there.
Yeah.
And the camera people seemed to have no autonomy.
And the show needed
any to shut it all down.
The show nearly put it into like a he said, she said, where Shandy herself is like, they're responsible. They're all saying, well, it's nothing to do with us, it was production. And then this is where the documentary should have brought in like a third party, somebody who's like a lawyer for production. And actually that person should have explained to us then, well, because I don't know.
Who was responsible?
Who's responsible? Where does the responsibility lie? If someone's like, I believe under the age of 21, she's inebriated, she's in a really dangerous situation, and you keep filming, who's responsible? And this is where I just feel the documentary's lacking. Like, they didn't get into that. Whereas in the podcast, she was, though she didn't reference the Shandy incident at all actually in the podcast, but the ones where she did, she like brought people in, like outside psychologists and stuff to talk about it. So yeah, Tyra, we were rooting for you, Tyra, but look, like back in the day I liked Tyra, and then over the years, like with her talk show and I don't know, any appearances I've seen of her and with more mature eyes, I've always been like, I think she's a bit problematic. But I was willing to give her a fair shake here, but I think this is really bad for her. I'm dying to hear what she's to say about it.
I'm surprised that she was a part of it, except for, as you say, to promote her next show.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what this has done for her.
I guess she couldn't allow, once she knew the two J's and Nigel were going to be in it, for example.
I guess it did maybe give her an element of control over it, even if she didn't contribute that much to it.
Yeah, and the early days of her being like an entrepreneur, creating this show, like creating this, like, that stuff's really cool. But then the pretense that she's trying to do body diversity and all the rest of it, when she, like, we've got clips of her telling girls they need to lose weight, is just like kind of laughable. Okay, let's get on to the rest of the kind of main characters, and then we'll, in terms of the judges, and then we'll go through kind of episode by episode all the stories. Ms. J was the poor guy. He's had a stroke. He is doing so well. I think he's speaking really well. He actually had a stroke in 2022, and he said he fell into a coma for 5 weeks, and he's been in kind of recovery ever since. And there's this lovely kind of scene with him and Nigel and Mr. J, and he also says that they had visited him in the hospital, and it's really difficult for him because he, of course, like, is the man who taught supermodels how to walk, and now he can't walk, which we kind of find out at the end. And he's in a wheelchair, and then the person interviewing him says, like, did Tara visit you? And he says, well, she texted me and she said she wanted to see me. And then he does the famous Miss J thing where he puts his head down and looks, eyes up, and looks at the camera. And that was brilliant. And like, that is a skate. That's what they basically ended the documentary on.
He said, she hasn't visited me yet.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, he's basically like, yeah, she ain't coming. I go to Nigel next, because Nigel, my God, that man had nothing to say.
Nothing.
Like he's a robot. Mm-hmm. Everything he said was a soundbite.
The only thing he said was, when I got fired from America's Next Top Model, I had made no backup plan for myself. And then I had to support my family. That was literally basically the only thing of interest he said.
Okay, but you were probably very rich and you're a very handsome model, and excuse me, while I don't feel particularly bad for you because you immediately went on to like shoot Taylor Swift or whatever. He like, when he was with the two J's, I felt their friendship, and I was because I always loved the J's, so like I felt warm to Nigel when I saw them together, and I've no doubt he's probably like an alright guy, like, But you know the 2-pint test?
No.
So
2-pint test?
Yeah, you'd go for 1 pint with anyone, most people, right? Would you go for a second pint with Nigel? He's so boring.
No, I don't think so.
You'd make your excuses. You'd be like, listen, have you got any shit to talk about?
I've seen the photos you've taken of Taylor Swift. Let's move on now.
Yeah, let's move on. He's so boring. Everything's a soundbite. Like, I actually kind of feel like he was maybe just reading sound bites they gave him, and then they were like interjecting them when relevant. There's a sequence, probably the sequence he looked worse in, where Kenya from one of the very early seasons talks about how she, like, on set she was really uncomfortable in one of the shoots, and there was this male, like, dancer kind of model, like, basically groping her, and Nigel just, he was the photographer, like, he's got nothing, like, he's inane. His responses are inane, basically. He's nothing to say. He keeps saying things like, oh, well, that's what the industry was like back then, and like, that's true.
Which is really the party line for all of them.
Yeah, and you could, but I think two things can be true. You can acknowledge it was really toxic, it was the industry, and they can say, and they should say, and look, we were propagating it, and then you can say, and I feel terrible about that now. But they never say, and I feel bad now.
No, never.
They're afraid to, I feel like they're all afraid to get sued or something. Like, so there's no real, like, this is not the reckoning the fans have been waiting for, if you know what I mean. Mr. J, the only one, in fairness,
he actually had a bit to say.
He propped the whole thing up.
Yeah.
They'd have been really lost without him, I think. I always was very fond of him. Were you?
Me too.
Yeah.
And that's what was so bittersweet, I think, watching, because they showed quite a lot of the old footage, like watching Miss J and Mr. J, like, that part of the shows was always so fun. And, like, I do have fond memories from watching the show and watching it with you and our other sister. And he did seem to, at least at the start, like, genuinely care for the girls. Like, he was trying to, like, make the challenges fun and stuff. And,
like, in the day, like, back in the day, like, when this came out, 2002, it was a brilliant queer representation. Like, two gay guys on telly, both of whom actually were wearing a lot of makeup. Just that kind of fun side of queer joy, and I always loved them.
And their camaraderie together was lovely.
and I always loved that. And that is something, like, that is positive about the show. And then there's kind of this big hint at the end of episode 2. Well, not a big hint. Like, Mr. J says, like, after season 8, I want it out. The show was just going in a crazy direction. Like, Tyra and I had always been best friends, and we said we'd always be honest with each other. And then he emailed her and he says, like, I think I want to leave the show. And then her email back says, what did it say?
It just said, I am disappointed.
I am disappointed. Oh, yeah.
But you can see it in his eyes, like, because they kept just flashing forward through, and Cathy and I were so surprised that we could, like, literally every crazy photo shoot that came up, whatever the theme was, we immediately recognized it, like, we'd seen them all. But, like, the themes for them were just getting more and more out of control. Like, and you could see it in Mr. J's eyes as well, that like, he was a bit like, what am I, like, he's a creative director, but, like, this isn't creative anymore. It was just, like, and also insane.
He said, like, after season 8, basically, he said, I want to leave. She said, I'm very disappointed. And then next time he saw her on set, they said, will you do one more season? And he said, okay. He shows up on set, and Tyra will not speak to him when the cameras aren't rolling, but when the cameras are rolling, it's like all an act. They're like best friends. And he says it was like mental torture. And then the show producer or whoever's interviewing Tyra says, will you talk to us about Mr. J? And she says, I can phone Jay myself. Like, I'm not going to talk about him here. Which makes it tricky, because for most the viewer then, like, do we take his word for it? Has she got something else to say? She's given the opportunity to say it. She doesn't, but maybe she just doesn't want to air her dirty laundry in public, which I wouldn't either.
Yeah, but she kind of made it seem like she knew she should have phoned him 15 years ago and still hadn't got around to it.
Yeah, that's true. But then this is where the documentary is terrible, because so I'm like, oh, I don't remember him leaving after cycle 9. Like, that's really way sooner than I remembered him. And then, like, half an hour later, the show's like, so in cycle 18, we sacked Nigel and the 2 J's.
And at that point, had he still just been, like, an on-screen host, or had he been re-involved in the, like,
because he said in
production
cycle 9,
of it? We don't know.
He said when he got brought back for cycle 9, he was basically on-screen talent only. He was no longer the creative director, and he was just creative directing, like, the final runway show, which is the other trope we forgot to mention. And yeah, the show just doesn't tell us, and I find that inexplicable that no one on rewatch from the editing booth would have gone, oh, we've lost a thread there.
Yeah.
He's very unhappy with Tyra, though. He's certainly, like, he's like, you know, when they talk about after the three of them got fired after season 18, then how the show moved into seasons that you didn't remember, but I was still hanging in there at this point.
They happened,
season,
I think, after I went to college, and I didn't have live TV anymore.
British Invasion, college edition. They even had like seasons with men on it.
And they had a petite season.
Yeah, petite season. I always laughed at as someone who's 5'1" because I was like, these girls are like 5'7".
They were like my height, and I'm like tall for Ireland. Like I'm not petite.
So maybe someone was 5'6". What a short little bitch. So then Mr. J is kind of quite smugly, and all three of them then, Nigel, Mr. J and Miss J, are all quite smugly taking credit for the fact that like when they left it all went downhill. But I mean the ratings were on the way out anyway.
Yeah, but it's a crazy production choice. It's like to be like, something's going wrong with the show, let's get rid of the things that people always loved about the show. Like,
I know, it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but I'd say it was probably a crisis meeting where they were like, we need to switch things up. And then I had completely forgotten that then Rita Ora became the host, and again I also watched that. Like, I think I would watch this on my deathbed. Like when season 20, despite everything I'm saying about the show, like I will be watching Cycle 25.
I mean, and it's very good publicity for it, and we probably will tune in, but
we'll recap every episode.
But it's even more so strange now that they're promoting another season, even though they only kind of teased it at the end, to not have acknowledged, like for Tyra not to have really acknowledged that anything that went on in the previous seasons was that bad. Like, she didn't acknowledge that in this documentary.
No.
To be saying, like, she didn't say, now we're coming back with like a fresh perspective, or we're going to do something different. Like, they don't mention what might be different about the new season. Like, are we just supposed to expect like 2005 chaos? Like, or
yeah, I don't understand. And like, it's so funny because like the documentary makes it very clear, and we all knew it already, that like almost none of them ended up becoming models. Like 3 of them or 4 of them had big modeling careers,
but for many of them it was a hindrance because they had too much. Like, big designers want you to just be a clothes hanger for their clothes, I think, a lot of the time.
And also then like the modeling agent, and they do allude to this as well, the modeling where a lot of it's moved into like online influencers are now models. And also they said that like when they left the cycle that their lookbooks were so stupid because they're like
crazy, like,
oh what do you mean I'm hanging upside down like dressed as a mermaid with the dead fish hanging off me, and the casting agents just want to see you with like no makeup on, like a simple white t-shirt, and like,
and they're also
really
like
plain,
ridiculously retouched to make them feel like there was something that needed to be retouched. And they would also have chosen the worst photo of them on purpose to make them feel bad, so they just ended up with
I love when
trash.
Mr. J was like, yeah, like to suit the storyline, like they pick bad, deliberately pick bad pictures.
But we could even tell that when we were watching it live, because you'd watch the photo shoot, it would be fine, and then they would pull up this photo that was just like the worst possible option.
They showed footage of one of the girls, and like I can't remember her name now, but saying like, you picked the worst take of me, because there was a take where I delivered my lines, and Tyra's all like, how dare
but then
you?
Tyra says, how many of you think that we chose your worst one? And like 3 of them put their hands up.
And then what they probably didn't leave out was Tyra giving them like an absolute bollocking. I feel like the show could have really expanded. Like it's funny that you thought 3 episodes was a good length, because I'm usually like a 3 episode gal, and I'll take the shorter the better. But for something with this length and breadth and like the amount of issues the show had, the documentary was just, there's too many people, it was touching too lightly on things. Like I feel like the podcast documentary did a much better job of like, it would take one person and like follow their story through for us and kind of link it back to the bigger issues with the show. By the way, on that podcast is also like a hit piece on Tyra.
I'd love to listen to it. I think more what I meant was, at the quality and depth it was at, I didn't need any more episodes of it.
Agree. Yeah, 100% agree. I also nearly feel like Tyra saying, oh, Cycle 25 was almost as if she like thought of it on the spot, because like there was nothing around. It wasn't like enunciated, like that girl likes to enunciate. It was just kind of muttered.
Yeah, she's just like, we'll be back or something. Or
yeah, it felt very half-hearted.
Yeah.
Like to me, that does not feel like a show that's like fully been developed and greenlit.
And clearly the Jays aren't coming back, and Nigel's not coming back.
I would say they'd all be back in a heartbeat.
You think?
Yeah, like
I suppose they might
such
not.
a huge part of their lives. Like, but I don't think Tyra would work with them. Like, because the 3 of them together at the end must have been a knife in the heart. Like, and I hate to see a documentary with like with such bad vibes towards one woman, the singular woman who created the vision of the show. I found Ken Mock, who's the other executive producer, to be like quite disparaging, and like I've found him very unpleasant. Like, oh, I thought it was a vanity project from her, and dismissive and the way he spoke about it, I just like the way he basically was like, yeah, look, everyone on the show was poor and they had terrible backstories and we tried to exploit them. Not in so many words. Like, he came across very unpleasantly. So you do come away feeling like, God, was there no one there to defend Tyra?
It's more just like Tyra doesn't help herself in the things that she says and how she was acting. I don't think that she's the main issue with America's Next Top Model, and I don't think anybody's really saying that, even though it's easy to get the public flack for it. There's obviously endless producers and executives and things.
Some of the contestants really were, though, like, I blame Tyra because...
But can they be objective either, though?
Yeah, I guess they were the ones who she spoke so harshly to.
And she was like their idol, and they thought that she was really had their best interests at heart and would get them into the modelling industry.
Yeah.
So then any slight from her obviously felt so personal.
But she was also the executive producer. Like, she was choosing what stuff to put in. And multiple of the black women were like, I couldn't believe a black woman did this to me.
Yeah.
Like, they felt doubly let down. They're like, you're a woman in the industry, you're a black woman in the industry, you have a rare and unique power, and like, look what you did.
Yeah.
And it's like, heavy is the head that wears the crown.
And she would just keep saying crazy things, like where she would like say that she was doing all of this for like diversity and to make it, to open doors for people, but then she would just be like at the judging be like, yeah, like I do believe all of this, but really we have to function within the world of modelling, and like you just don't fit the mold, thanks, goodbye.
Yeah, it's almost like she's
what are you on about?
Like, I'll cast them diversely, and then after that I will rip them apart and actually bully them for the very weight that we brought them in at.
And some of the contestants then said that it led to like young girls or people in the public coming to them and being like, oh well, now I really know that I can't be a model because I have the same issues that you have that Tyra pointed out.
Yeah, but I weigh like 50 pounds more.
Yeah,
than
it was like,
you.
you've actually somehow made it worse for people's self-esteem.
What we've learned from the show, though, is that neither of us would even pass for plus size models.
No, I'd have to like grow an entire foot or something.
It's insane. Now, they even say that now, like what they were calling quote unquote plus size models in the noughties is now like, that's just like a normal influencer model's weight. Like, and it is interesting. I said to Elizabeth, when I lived in Australia, I went to like a recording of like one of the finales of Australia's Next Top Model, because I was obviously so deep in that show as well. And I went to this after party where we were like with all the models, and it was like, we were all the normal people standing around and the models, and like lots of women in Australia are really tall, you know. But the models were like gazelles or something. They were like, if you'd taken like a child and stretched them up to being 5'10", like it is
towering over you.
It is just a completely different like body type that you don't see in the real world. And we were both saying as we watched this, like, it showed us people fainting from hunger, and like we never realized as kids that
I thought they were like hot and tired, like overworked, stressed, but
yeah,
I never considered the fact that they literally weren't eating. And they said they were like drinking Diet Coke, eating, like smoking cigarettes, like fainting. And then we saw a girl eating just a jar of pickles for her lunch.
Yeah,
like,
sick. And then we're like watching it when we were younger. Well, I was anyway. Like, I was much older than you, so I was like 19, 18, 17. I'm like, oh yeah, they're just naturally that thin. And it never crossed my mind that, you know, when, unless in the instances when they showed you attention to it, you know, that they were like doing terrible damage to themselves, which is so sad. Right, I think we should get in episode by episode now. Briefly, we've obviously covered the main things.
If you want to hear the end of this episode and hundreds of others where we review retro movies and all the biggest TV shows, come over to our Patreons called the Cinemile High Club, where you can sign up for less than the cost of a cup of coffee a month, because coffee is expensive. And if you're not sure, we even have a 7-day free trial where you can have a listen to as many episodes as you like to see if you want to stick around. And we hope you do. It's over at patreon.com/the Cinemile. See you there. Bye.